Hello and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to take another look at the challenge system in Crayta, but I'm going to look at it in a way where we can use challenges to kind of create the core of our gameplay. So previously when we looked at challenges, we looked at them as an additional aspect to add to your game. So you have your core gameplay loop, things like running around shooting each other or collecting things. And then the challenges were added additionally to that. Whereas in this game, what I have at the moment is simply just a park that you can walk around. And what I want to do with this park is use the challenge system to add the narrative and the core gameplay of the game. So the whole point of this game will be to complete today's 3 challenges. So if you're not sure how the challenge system works, essentially you make a bank as a game creator, you make a bank of challenges and you can make as many as you want to with descriptions and icons and the rest of it. And then each day, Crayta will pick 3 of your challenges to offer to players. Now, it doesn't matter whether they've completed those challenges before or not. The challenges will be offered to all players. So anyone that opens your game will have the option to complete those challenges in that 24-hour period. Once they've completed a challenge, those challenges then go towards building up points to get bronze, silver, and gold in a level. And if they get to gold, they essentially, or if they get to bronze, silver, or gold, they essentially get a trophy that they can show off to their fellows in the game. So they can shake a trophy in their friends' faces and say, look, I'm bronze, silver, or gold at this level. I've completed this many challenges. So it gives a real reward and an incentive for players to come back. And by including it as the crux of your gameplay, it is also a really efficient and interesting way to create a game when you might have just started by expressing yourself and creating some kind of rich, interesting environment, like this one here, for example. So let's look at how we can turn this this park into a game by adding challenges. So I'm going to go back to the advanced mode. I'm going to use advanced mode because it's what I'm comfortable with, but also because we're going to do a little bit of scripting in here. So I would recommend you do the same if you want to follow along. Now, the first thing I noticed when I was walking around was that it'd be really fun to add a challenge where players need to swim in this fountain. So I'm going to do that by adding a trigger over the fountain. And when a player enters the trigger, I'll fire off a challenge event. So I'm going to go to the primitives tab in my library, click on trigger, add that to the fountain. I'm just going to increase the size of the trigger to 1000 by 1000 by 250. Nice big trigger. And then just position it in the center of the fountain. I'm calling it a fountain. It's more like just a pool or a body of water of some kind, because there's no actual moving water there apart from, you know, there's this water here. So I've positioned my stop semantically discussing fountains and let's carry on with the challenges. So I've positioned the trigger in the middle of the pool, and I'm going to add a script to my trigger. I'm going to click entity, add script, new script, and I'm going to call this my send challenge script. I'm keeping it quite generic because I'm going to use the same script with lots of different things in this game world to fire off challenge events to the Crayta API. So I'm going to click send challenge script. So I've now added that script to the trigger, and I'm going to open the script by clicking edit this asset. So in here, I'm just going to add a function that I can use to send a challenge. Send challenge script, send challenge. And then I'm going to need to get hold of the user or of the player. So whoever is currently just completed the challenge, I need to get hold of the user or entity that represents them in the game. So the player will need to be sent as an argument to this function. If you're not sure what that means, don't worry too much. Just take a look at this and say, okay, so the player is going to come in these brackets, and then this variable called player will then store a reference to the player's character in the game world. And let's now get hold of the user from that. So I'm going to do player :get user. Open and close brackets because that's a function, and that will get hold of the user themselves, and then : send challenge event. And it's asking me to supply a string, so alphanumeric characters, and it needs the name of the event. So that means we need to go and set up a challenge in our bank of challenges that will respond to the player completing this one. So I'm going to hit F11. I'm going to go to create.crayta.com, and I'm going to add my challenge in here. So for example, here I've added this a full soggy experience. And essentially, I'm using riddles or clues rather than the actual description of what you need to do as my challenges. So that then gives a little bit of a puzzle element to my game. So when a player approaches my game, they'll be able to see what challenges are open on this day, and they'll be able to see the description of those challenges in the display name. They'll then need to figure out what those clues might be alluding to, and then go and perform that action in my game. So it's kind of like offering, clues for my players, and then they have to figure out what that means and then go and do the thing in the game and eventually earn some trophies and earn some points by doing it. So a full soggy experience is the name of this one. So it's a bit of a clue, but you could probably guess from that what it might be, as there's a big pool of water in my game world. So I'm adding that. I've chosen an icon. I've given it the event name, which is the name that I need to send up using the script. And I only need you to complete it once. I only need the player to complete it once to get this challenge. So let's go back to Stadia, back to the game. So what was the name of the event? It was Fountain Swim. So I might copy that to the clipboard and then go back to game. And then it needs us to send a string here. So I could do this. I could just send it like this, and this would be totally valid. But that would then mean the script can only apply to that one particular challenge. A better way to do this would be to go in here in my property bag and add a new property which will store the name of the event, of the challenge event. So event challenge event name is the name of the property. The type is a string. And then rather than using fountain-swim here, I will put self.properties.challenge event name. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go here and I'm going to paste in the name of the challenge that I just copied from my create.crayta.com area. So I have that added that now and hit enter. So that's all done. So now this trigger has a script attached to it, which will essentially fire off a challenge event with the string fountain swim as the property within that. So it will talk to the API and it will say, I've completed this event has occurred in the game, fountain swim. And then the Crayta challenge API will handle everything else and say, oh, how many times did they do that? And are there any other conditions that apply to that? In order for that function to fire, I just finally need to hook up the onTriggerEnter function here with that script function that I wrote. So I'm going to drag on the trigger. It will automatically select the script because that's the only script that's attached to this trigger. And then I need to just select the function that I want to call when the player enters the trigger. So when the player enters the trigger, it will fire off the send challenge event. When a player enters the trigger as well, any event that's called will pass the player that has entered the trigger as the first parameter. So we're capturing that here. And then we're using that to get hold of the user and then sending the challenge event to the API with that user with the name of the challenge, which is Fountain Swim. And then the challenge API will do the rest. So let's have a little test. I'm going to hit F5 to run the game. I'm going to run up here, enter the fountain, and a full soggy experience has been completed. So hopefully the player figured out the riddle, but they might have just accidentally fallen in the fountain, and that's totally cool as well. Accidentally completing challenges is just as good a way of completing challenges as figuring out what they actually mean. But as I add more challenges and more interactive elements to the game, it might get significantly harder to find the right event, the right challenge. And so I have to be kind of particular, but also, riddler with the name of my challenges. So another challenge I might like to add to my game world is this fortune teller over here. I'd like my players to interact with the fortune teller, something happen when they interact with the fortune teller, and also to fire off a challenge event as well. So I'm going to start by clicking on the fortune teller. I'm going to click Entity, Add Script, and I'm going to use the same script that I added for the swim in the fountain one. So send challenge script. I'm going to scroll down now that I've selected that, and I can see that it's been added here. And I want to send the challenge event name. So if I go back to create.crayta.com and look at my challenges in here, I've added another one called Predict the Future. And the event name for that is Fortune Teller. So this is the event, this is the challenge that I wanted to assign to this particular action in the game. It's very abstract. Predict the future could mean lots of different things. So I would say a full sulky experience is kind of medium difficulty because there's a pond as well as a fountain and you might not know which one to enter. I don't know. Whereas predict the future is a little bit more obscure. And so it offers a different level of challenge. So it means that people coming back to the game might not have completed it, or it might mean some people complete it by accident, and that's all okay. It's just adding a little bit of fun and interactivity to this game world. So let's take the event name, which is Fortune Teller, and I'm going to go back to my game and I'm going to plug that into my challenge event name and hit enter. Let's test that out before we add anything else. So I'm going to run over there, dive in the pool. That still works. And the fortune teller is over here. So I haven't hooked it up to any kind of event. And so there's no way for me to actually complete that challenge. So let's go back to the game, to the editor. Click on the fortune teller. And I want it to happen on the onInteract event. So I'm going to just drag the fortune teller onto the entity there. Send challenge script is already selected. And I'm just going to do the send challenge function there. Hit F5, return to the game world, run over to the fortune teller, hit E to interact, and the challenge has been completed. Now I want to add some additional sort of richness and feedback for the player when they complete that challenge. I want to do that because I want to show them that the challenge was completed intentionally and that they've done something, they've affected the game world with their action, and that makes the player experience a bit more immersive and a bit more enjoyable too. So to do that, I could go into this script and I could start playing around with adding properties and changing things up in here. But a better way to do that would be to keep that script as only to do with the challenges and to actually add another script to do the specific action to do with the interaction there. So I'm going to click Entity, Add Script, New Script. And this one's going to be particular to the fortune teller. So I'm going to call it my fortune teller script. Hit OK. And then I'm going to scroll down to the fortune teller script in the entity editor and click Edit this asset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the fortune teller script, and then I'm going to call Activate as the name of my function. I'm going to need a couple of properties. So I'm going to need, let's say, a light. I've added, so you can see here in the hierarchy, I've added a sound and a light. So I want to turn on the sound and turn on the light at the same time when you interact with the fortune teller. So the first property is going to be a light. The type is an entity. And then I'm going to add another one as well. So this one's going to be a sound. And that is also going to be an entity. So I've got two properties in there. If I hit save, you can see that they come up down here in the entity editor as light and sound. And then I can just drag and drop those on there. So the light goes in the light and the sound goes in the sound. Now in my activate function, I'm going to turn those on. So self.properties.light.visible equals true. And I'm going to spell visible correctly. Just delete that space for consistency, and then self.properties.sound.active is true as well. So turn on those two things, and then I want to call this function when I interact with my fortune teller. So I'm going to click the add on the onInteract entry box there, and then I'm going to use this drop down to just drag on this to the entity. I'm going to select the script this time because now there's two scripts. It won't know which one I intend to use. So use the drop down, fortune teller script, activate. Hit F5 to test that out. Let's go and attack the fortune teller here. There we go. So I've given the player a little bit more feedback, as well as them receiving the challenge completed thing there. I've also given them some in-game feedback, and it's totally fine if that challenge isn't selected, to still have that as an interactable element to my game world, because it will add richness, but also a little bit of complexity to the game puzzles. Because you can be running around here, interacting with lots of different things, trying things out. And yet only 3 of those things will be the actual challenges for today. And so I can continue to add more things to this game world. I could make a trigger within this sensory garden. So it's something to do with exploring that. I could do something to do with collecting ducks or collecting mushrooms. I could do something to do with this rover. Maybe you interact with it. There's all sorts of things you can kind of do, and I can add more sort of meshes and entities into this game world, and just play around and have a lot of fun by adding just challenges into this, and also embark on a bit of creative expression and think about some stories about what's going on, what's this character doing and why they're doing it, and include those within the challenges too. So it gives another layer of depth, another layer of richness into this game world. And we can have a look at some of the challenges that are already out there. So if I go out here to the play tab, just as an example of what you might see in sort of the challenges out there. So if we look at this Tumbleweed Ridge and click on the challenges there, you can see that today's challenges is these 3 things here. And so as a player, I could go and investigate these challenges and try and figure out what these mean, or if they're really clear like these ones, that gives me some solid goals. I'm saying solid gold because there's gold there. That gives me some solid goals to aim for today. And I can just pick and choose when I want to do those or just complete those challenges. And you can see that my progress on this game, I haven't yet completed any challenges for it. Shame on me. But as I would complete these, once I get to 5 completed challenges, then I would get a bronze trophy, which I can show people in the game. And so that's essentially the challenge system. I hope that's been a useful exploration into an alternative way to use challenges as a way to sort of be the core game mechanic of your game. Let me know what you think of this tutorial, whether it's been useful, and definitely get involved with adding challenges to your game. They're a really fun way to add richness and depth to your game world and giving something else to your players. And also remember to tag your games with challenges when you publish them as well, because that will help players who really like the challenges just to focus on the ones they want to that have challenges. They can click on the tags and then sort those games, find those games that have the challenges. Yeah, so hopefully that's been useful, and I really look forward to trying out your challenges and playing your games in Crayta.